Hey, bulls and bears. We are back with another dose of economic reality, and you have until the end of the year. And it's not me saying that. Well, of course, it's me saying that because I'm repeating what someone else said, or what another entity said. So we're going to talk about what that means. You have until the end of the year. By the way, it is February 7th. It is Tuesday, 2023 here. Thank you for being here. Let's go ahead and get into it. My name is JJ. What is being said here is coming out of the Wall Street Journal, but it's about what Goldman Sachs had to say in the forecast of when consumers are going to be finished with their savings, or they're going to burn through their savings. Let's talk about what this article said here. And it's funny because people thought I was doom and gloom or full of negative forecasts or not so good information here, or not so fun information. The Wall Street Journal, households burn through what's left of their pandemic savings. High prices in the end of relief programs eats into previously flushed accounts. So what is being reported here is what Goldman Sachs is estimating, that just about all the funds that are left in people's accounts is going to be burned up by the end of the year. And no, lower inflation is not going to come to the rescue, because lower inflation doesn't mean prices are going down. It just means that prices are going to go up, still go up more, but only less quickly, or less as severe of an increase. You see what I'm saying? So that doesn't really help anybody, right? When the cost of living is too high and people don't have enough money to keep up with the cost of living, the solution, or what would help, is deflation. That means falling prices. It doesn't mean lower inflation. You guys understand this? Well, if you do, you're on top of the game, because most people don't understand that simple concept. They hear lower inflation and they think that's somehow going to be a good thing going forward. Sure, it's better than higher inflation, but inflation in general is not a good thing, especially when people are already buried under debt. Most people already cannot keep up with the rising cost of living. We need deflation, but yet the powers that be are afraid to even discuss the possibility of deflation. And yes, there's a couple areas where deflation is happening, with automobiles, for example, with housing, for example, with rents. Actually, rents are coming down, which is a good thing. But overall, when we look at year over year inflation, it continues to get worse. Right? So there is your forecast by Goldman Sachs. By the end of the year, most of this extra savings, which is really not extra, most of this extra savings that people have in their accounts is going to be gone, for the most part. And that's not a good thing when you have an economy that is dependent on consumer spending. That's where most of the economic activity comes from, is consumer spending. People going on vacation, people going on shopping sprees, swiping their credit card, and taking on more debt. That's looked at as a positive thing as far as economic growth. But folks, let me ask you, did we need Goldman Sachs to come out and tell us this information? No, because if you've been on this channel, you already know what's happening. You know that Americans are burning through their savings like we've never seen before. And at our current levels of savings here, on average here, people are back at the financial crisis levels, where, again, things were really expensive. Home prices were really high before the housing market went crash, and people had very little savings. The cost of living was enormous. And of course, we saw the inevitable crash. Yet somehow people think this time it's different, and it is different. So I guess they're right. In a certain sense, they're right, because it's different in that it's much worse this time. Debt is higher. The levels of savings is plunging even faster than it did back then before the financial crisis. Interest rates were raised even more rapidly now than they were before. So if you look at a lot of things, yeah, they're different and they're worse. Right. So the interesting part, though, is going to see what kind of response they're going to come out with. There's going to be price controls coming down, from a national level for rents. So that's going to be interesting to see how that works out. Is that going to cause more harm than good? And what other types of assistance packages are going to come out there? Are they going to freeze car loans? Are they going to freeze foreclosures again? Are they going to freeze different types of payments? We'll have to see, because that could really affect the type of downturn that we have. They could have a implementation of some sort of universal basic income that's been looked at and talked about for years now. And certain cities, as I'm sitting here today, certain cities are already experiencing or experimenting with that type of basic income program. in addition to all the other types of payouts that we already see, happening already. All right, now more into this article and this prediction from Goldman Sachs. Let's just read about one subject here that was discussed in that article. All right, let's talk about one of the subjects here from this article. 34-year-old guy, his savings had swelled up to $20,000 in early 2020. It dwindled to 2,000. He said the additional financial support, the stimulus checks, the enhanced unemployment benefits, right? All the things we talked about during that year as to what was happening, the savings situation. Now it's dwindled back down to 2,000. So it started off at 4,000, went up to 20,000. Now he's back to $2,000. So he's worse now than where he was when he started. And it also goes on to talk about how sales really dropped in his business. He was a small business owner. And there's tens of millions of people out there just like him. All right, so let's go on to some other news here. And it seems like it never fails. Every episode, another big layoff. Zoom to lay off 1,300 people. That's 15% of its workforce. And even the CEO is going to be taking a massive pay cut, right? So folks, if we were really in a recovery like we've been told about now since coming out of the 2020 lockdowns / shutdowns, if we were really in a recovery, why all these layoffs? And if the labor market was so strong, if these jobs added numbers really meant that there was a good, growing, strong economy, why are these companies laying off, right? It doesn't make any sense, right? So I think these companies, they know what's going on. They see the drop in spending. People, again, don't have a lot of money to spend now because the savings has plunged. The cost of living is really eating into people's budgets. And the question that I get here a lot is, when do we go from this slowdown mode that we're seeing now with the layoffs and the consumer spending slowing down, people's savings dwindling and approaching zero, hopefully not zero yet, but a lot of people are headed that direction here. But how long until we go from the slowdown mode to the meltdown mode? That is the question here. So continue to prepare. This could be many, many months. I think 2023, as I've said earlier, is going to be a wild year, and we're going to see a lot of big changes. And remember, this whole economy is propped up on debt. So now we're seeing the slowdown, consumers pulling back on spending because they have to. And now you're seeing the slowdowns, the layoffs. We also have to look at the debt markets, though, because when the central bank goes in and purchases all this debt, when they're buying the debt, that helps keep rates suppressed. And that's why we haven't seen mortgage rates spike higher. Remember, they went up to about 7%. Now we're down in the mid 6% range for mortgage rates. So the central bank's still in there buying the debt. Look at the 10-year bond yield. It's about 3.6 right now. Remember, that bond yield had spiked up to about 4.26, close to 4.3 if I remember correctly, in the past 3 to 4 months here, or going into the fall of last year. So we're still seeing the powers that be keep mortgage rates suppressed. But keep an eye on the debt market, the 10-year yield. You'll see that spike when things are really starting to spiral out of control. And maybe they won't let it spiral out of control. Maybe they're just going to keep buying the debt and keep rates suppressed to keep this economic decline as more of a slow motion decline instead of a collapse. That's what I think is going to play out here. So we have more time to prepare. So it's actually a good thing. Could it spike anytime with some sort of unseen situation arising? Absolutely. Black Swan could jump out and take this whole house of cards down very quickly. So be on your toes, head on a swivel, think on your feet. Be careful out there. Crime is rising. Let me show you this as far as retail theft goes. And we're seeing more and more photos like this as the population is either broke or going broke. And we see just about everything on this aisle that we can see here is behind some sort of encasing or locked up. Everything from shampoo to other products here looks like makeup. All right, so it looks like we're continuing to see just what we had predicted here coming out of the 2020 crisis, is that the collapse is going to proceed here as planned. End of the rescue programs, end of the extra payouts, enhanced unemployment benefits, no more stimulus checks. Rent forgiveness, we'll see what happens with that. But things are not looking so good here. It's going to get dangerous out there. More people trying to take what you have. So be careful and try not to show off too much. Don't make yourself a target. I know it's nice to have a nice watch and a nice car, and kind of people like to flaunt their money and their wealth. And you want to dress up in a nice suit and things like that, and wear nice jewelry. Understandable, but just be careful, and not to turn this into a self-defense channel, but it's part of the picture, right? So, what good is money and being financially well-to-do if you're in a hospital bed somewhere because someone tried to take what you have and you tried to stop them, right? So be careful, folks. Keep stacking. What do you think about the Goldman Sachs warning you have until the end of the year? Savings will be gone or mostly gone. It's about a 65% drop they predicted in savings. Go check that article out. What do you think about Goldman Sachs prediction and more? Please let me know down in the comments. Thanks everybody for being here. Big love. Bye for now. Keep stacking in peace.